Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Comp 1. So the first lecture that we are going to have in this course is going to cover essays and thesis statements, the basics. For some of you, this is going to be just the stuff you already know. For others, this is brand new information, and you're going to learn things and unlearn things maybe that you didn't know before. So let's dig into it together, all right? So what we're going to ask ourselves first is, what is an essay? Many of you in school were taught the traditional formula for an essay, which is 1-3-1. I call it a formula because all you have to do is plug things into it, much like math, and it works that way, but it's not math. So 1-3-1 means one introduction paragraph with a thesis statement, 3 body paragraphs that discuss the main points of your essay, and then 1 conclusion paragraph that wraps up the essay. That's it. Makes up an essay, right? 5 paragraphs, you know how do they go. But you have to ask yourself, do we have to do that? And the answer to that question is no. The formula is a great approach to learning. If you're not used to writing essays or you're uncomfortable with writing essays, it's a great formula to have. 1 introduction, 3 body, 3 points, 1 conclusion paragraph. But that doesn't mean you have to do it. Occasionally, an essay is just going to be 3 paragraphs, 1 introduction, 1 body, 1 conclusion. Sometimes it's 52, 1 introduction, 50 body, 1 conclusion. It all depends on the essay you're writing, the content, and the point you're trying to get across. Keep that in mind when you're writing your essays. I will not be counting paragraphs and saying you didn't get 5, you failed. Just keep that in mind. What 3 important things does an essay actually contain? So when you look at your essay, there's going to be 3 things that every essay is going to have. I like to look at things as mnemonic devices, so I remember this as TAP, topic, angle, purpose. The first is going to be the topic, and that is where you ask yourself the question, what am I writing about? With that, you are going to have your topic, and that is what you're going to write about. But that does not always mean that your topic is something that you know or that you enjoy. Now, depending on the class, your instructor may give you a topic to write about. Sometimes in science classes, they will say you must write about X, Y, Z. It's perfectly fine. Sometimes in English classes, you may have a teacher that says everyone's going to write this essay about this topic. That's also fine. Sometimes you may have a teacher that says do whatever. For those of you who are going, I don't like to do that, I get it. I do. Sometimes it's hard to choose a topic. Other times you may be given parameters, or what I like to refer to is my sandbox. So when I give you guys an essay, I don't give you a specific topic. I'm going to hand over a sandbox to each of you with sand in it. And I'm going to say, here's all the sand. Here's what this needs to contain. You build your sandcastle, the topic, out of that sand. I don't choose topics for you because our interests are probably very different and they diverge. You may hate the topic that I choose for you, and then you're going to hate me in the process. And then you're going to be like, Miss Cravens is the worst. She made me write about XYZ. Miss Cravens didn't really make you write about that. You chose to do it because you asked me. Okay? When you are trying to choose a topic for an essay, especially an essay that is like an argumentative essay, think about something that you actually have an interest in or an interest in learning and something that intrigues you. You don't want to bore yourself with the topic because trust me, if it's a boring topic, you will hate it and you will hate doing the work that is involved with writing that topic. When you choose your topic, one thing you do need to keep in mind is relevancy of your topic. How relevant is your topic to today? When we talk about things like video game violence, that is a very old discussion, and things they reference tend to be older things to reference, and it doesn't quite apply today. You have to think about your topic's relevant place in our time that we have and the discussion that's going on about it. If people aren't talking about it, it probably doesn't have a lot of relevancy. So keep those things in mind. The A part of the TAP is angle, not angel. angle. And that's where you say, well, what's new about the topic? Where do we go? And that ties into relevancy. You have to consider something new that you can discuss. Any topic you choose is going to be a topic that has been talked about time and time again. There is nothing brand spanking new that you could find as a topic that nobody knows about yet. So you need to find one that nobody's talked about, that nobody really knows a lot about, that angle at least. That comes from your own experience and understanding of the topic itself. What is your experience with your topic? What do you know about it? How can you work an angle from that? That is where you will choose your angle from. What's changed about the topic? And my favorite thing to use for talking about angles and like what has changed is cell phones. For many of you, you have always had a smartphone. That has been a constant in your life. You've never had a cell phone that was a flip phone or a bag phone or anything like that. My first cell phone that I ever received was a Nokia, and you guys have probably seen memes about it. You've seen all that other stuff. It's the Nokia brick. That cell phone could survive, I feel like it could survive a nuclear blast, honestly. This one, not so much. But that's how much the phones have changed. And even if you take away the idea of smartphones, if you look at iPhones, last I recall with this video, we're on iPhone 12. iPhone started out with iPhone 3. So there have been 9 basic iterations of an iPhone since they started out. Those have changed. And in the past 5 years, there have been quite a few new iPhones that have come out in just the past 5 years. So that's why when you think about your angle, about what's new, think about that kind of thing. What has changed in the past 5 years about this topic, in the discussion about this topic? Please keep in mind when you're thinking about the angle. When you look at topics, they're never straightforward in terms of good, bad, wrong or right, or legal, illegal. There is no black and white to things. There's always gray areas that you have to understand and approach and discuss with your reader. The last one, the P, is purpose. So that's where you ask yourself, what should I accomplish with this essay? Occasionally your instructor is going to say, when you write this essay, you're going to be doing X, Y, Z. Okay, I know how to do that. I can do that. That's fine. Other times they're going to be vague about it. Well, it's just an argumentative essay. What kind of argument am I making? You're just making an argument. Well, that doesn't help me out at all. You need to know your purpose before you start writing because it will shape your essay and the way you write your essay. Your purpose shapes how you talk to people, how you talk to your audience. Your audience also helps dictate your purpose. Now, I know some of you are saying, Miss Cravens, you're my audience. I'm not your audience, guys. Sorry. Technically, your audience is your classmates, these people that you are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Yes, I will be grading your essay, but that doesn't mean I'm the person you're writing that essay for. So keep that in mind. Your purpose is going to be known and shown when you write your thesis statement as well, okay? That is where you get your purpose across. The inner workings of an essay. Let's talk about those things. So the inner workings of your essay include the introduction, conclusion, and thesis statement. These 3 things are key components and they are important to any essay. If you do not have a clearly defined introduction, a clearly defined conclusion, and a clearly defined thesis statement, your essay will be lacking. So keep that in mind. First up, when you do this, you are going to write an introduction first, generally. Introductions are the first thing I want to talk about, though. When you write an introduction, think of it like an upside down triangle. And I know a lot of people struggle writing effective introductions. I'm one of those people. My introduction tends to come about midway through writing my essay. I don't write my introduction first, guys. I tend to write it when it hits me. It's an upside down triangle, though. It starts off very broad and very general with your discussion. You don't immediately go into this is bad and this is why. You want to ease your reader into these things. So you start off broad and then you narrow it down to the point of that triangle, which will be your thesis statement. Your introduction is going to help your reader form an expectation over what the essay itself is going to be about. And it's going to leave an impression on them. Think about when you are writing in your introduction. Think about movies and books and things that you like watch and enjoy and consume. If you start watching a movie and the first 5 minutes are boring, do you really want to watch the rest of that movie? Generally, the answer to that question is no. No, I don't. I'm bored. I'm going to find something else. Why waste my time, right? Same thing with a book. You pick up a book and those first few pages are so boring that you're just sitting here going, can I please just burn this book? You don't want to read that book. Again, why waste your time? So keep that in mind with your own introduction. Don't make your introduction boring. Make it interesting for your reader. Many of you are probably taught to write a hook. Get your reader interested. And there are ways that you can do that. So, 5 things that an effective introduction should do. Let's think about this. The first thing is it's going to establish the topic. When I read your introduction, I should know what the topic of your essay is. It should be very clear to me from the introduction alone. Then you're going to state your purpose. Talked about that just a little bit ago. Why are you writing this essay? What is the point of this essay? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to get across? An effective introduction should interest your readers as well and provide background information that's potentially needed and necessary. And I say background information that's needed and necessary because not all background information is needed and necessary. You can stress the importance of the topic to the readers this way as well. It is a great way in your introduction to be effective. Stress the importance. And the 5th and final thing is present your thesis statement at the end of the introduction. The last sentence of your introduction is your thesis statement, because you are going from broad to narrow, broad general discussion to the narrow pointed focus of your essay. And your thesis statement is your pointed focus of your essay. Now, to write a strong introduction, here's some things you can do. You can ask a provocative or disturbing question, or pose a series of questions to your readers to get their attention. This is a way to engage your readers and make them start thinking about the topic and the things that you may talk about in your essay. You can talk about a dramatic or engaging anecdote, which is a story, or an example that's relevant to your topic and your thesis. You can even offer a quote that's going to be relevant to your thesis. Maybe you're going to give a little known fact or a shocking statistic, something that's going to make your reader go, oh, wait, what is going on here? State a commonly held misconception and correct that misconception in your thesis statement. Maybe you want to describe a hypothetical situation. What happens when the world we live in is uninhabitable and we are required to live in space and become so large we are relying solely on chairs to survive? That will never happen with Miss Cravens, by the way. I will never go in space. You can also compare your topic with one that is familiar to the topic you have or of special interest to your readers. I want to look at an introduction with you guys and discuss it. This is a little long, but let's read it together. This introduction starts. A famous Chinese proverb says, "Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I remember. And I may remember." Excuse me, Jim. Involve me and I'll understand. ThinkExist.com. For years, teachers, school administrators, and the government have strived to bring the truth of this proverb to life in education. There have been countless studies on learning styles and teaching strategies that have attempted to make the classroom more proficient. In recent years, the culmination of these studies and the vast need for better education have been compiled into the policy known as the No Child Left Behind Act, or NCLB. On paper, NCLB seems to be the bright hope of the future. It is the ambitious quest to make American students 100% proficient in math and reading by 2014. No Child Left Behind. However, in practice, this spells almost certain doom for teachers. NCLB has ended up costing the teachers a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. The way in which it measures qualifications is problematic. NCLB's demands require standards that are almost impossible to meet in the classroom, and in the end, the theories behind NCLB are not effective in practice. This was written by Aaron Fritz. Now, out of the 5 effective things that introduction should do, it has established our topic, right? We are talking about NCLB. You know that once you get about halfway into this introduction, and this is a very long introduction. It states the purpose. This essay is going to argue and show you the issues of NCLB. Now, is it very clear that that's the purpose? It could use a little bit of finessing to make it a little bit more clearer, but the purpose is there. We're going to talk about the problems that exist here. It gives you background information, because some of you may have sat here and said, what are you talking about? And you have no clue what No Child Left Behind is. For others, it is something that you may be very much familiar with if you have children. This mentioned that they wanted students to be 100% proficient in math and reading by 2014. This is an older essay, yes, but No Child Left Behind is also still in play now. It is telling you the importance of the topic. This is something that affects every educator in the United States. And it presents the thesis. That last sentence gives us the 3 things that the student is going to argue and talk about in this essay. The way in which it measures qualifications is problematic, point 1. NCLB's demands require standards that are almost impossible to meet in the classroom, point 2. And in the end, the theories behind NCLB are not effective in practice, point 3. So this thesis lays out the essay. I will go to those first body paragraph and I will see how it measures qualifications being problematic. After that discussion is done, I will go down and I will see that the standards are impossible to meet. And after that, I will see that the theories are not effective. He set everything up in this paragraph for us. Now, it starts off with a quote. Why this quote? Why say a famous Chinese proverb says, tell me and I'll forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I'll understand? It's because it's talking about teaching, right? When you talk about teaching, for some of us, being told things, we can remember them amazing. Showing, some people will do really well with that as well. But for others, involving them is how they get it. That quote is showing that these students aren't just what you want them to be. And he's kind of going to use that to shape his argument later on as well. It works out well enough. It is long, yes. Could it be cut down some? Possibly. I want you to think about that, though. How do you feel about it? Take a couple of seconds. Pause. Say, do I like it? Yeah? No? If you don't, that's fine. But think about why you don't like it. If the reason is, man, Miss Cravens, it's just way too long to read. Okay. What would need to be done then to make it shorter and more interesting for you? Think about that when you're writing your own stuff as well. Introductions. We're good to go with those now. Now let's talk about the other thing, the capstone of your essay, which are conclusions. I know, students tend to have issues writing conclusions. Again, I was a student once. I'm the same way. Ending my essays was always a problem. I always struggled with it. But you can do it, I promise. One thing I want you to remember with conclusions is that your conclusion is going to bring your essay to a satisfying close. Box with a bow. It's the bow on top of the present. It's going to reaffirm your thesis. You will not directly restate your thesis there. Don't give me your thesis over. Don't give me your introduction over. I don't want that. It can potentially be a good way to end an essay, but it also tends to look like a lazier way to end an essay as well. So what I want you to do when you're writing your conclusion is think of it as a separate entity. Conclusions can be shorter, and that's fine. Don't fret on length, okay? How, though, can you make your conclusion memorable? So, short essays, which is what you're generally going to write in here, you can do that in certain ways. Take your readers beyond the scope and time frame of your essay. So sometimes you're going to write essays that are about topics that are current. Then you can say, let's look at 10 years from now. Where are we going to be? 20 years from now, where are we going to be? Even 5 years from now, where are we going to be with whatever topic you're going on about? And that helps your reader understand that while you're ending, there is still things that are going to be ongoing with this. You can also remind readers of the relevance of your issue, or even talk about why it's important. Why are you talking about these things? What are they doing? Why do we need to understand this? What does it matter to me as a person? And many of you have probably approached life that way. What does this thing matter to me for? And that's why you have to reiterate it to your reader. This is why this should matter to you. At some point, it may affect you. You can also offer a recommendation or urge your readers to take action on something. A lot of people like to talk about things like recycling or deforestation, and those are great things to talk about. But when you end that discussion, what do I need to do as the reader with this? And that's what you have to look at and ask yourself. What do I need to do? Offer action. Hey, with recycling, maybe we should do X, Y, Z. With deforestation, maybe we should do this, and that will help with that. You can also discuss broader implications that aren't fully addressed in the essay. Don't bring up new ideas completely, though. This one is a little more trickier to navigate because discussing the broader things that can happen can bring up new issues, and then you're stuck with like a whole new essay being started. We don't want that. You can also end it with a fact, a quote, an anecdote, or an example. Same thing like you can start with. Remember, introductions and conclusions are these capstones, though, and you want them to end strongly for you. So let's look at a conclusion for an essay. Now, think about that introduction and how long it was, okay? It's pretty long, right? Let's look at this conclusion. In the end, if the public becomes more informed regarding the very real personal, physical, and environmental threats of global warming, perhaps people will begin minimizing their impact on the environment. Because if we are not careful, we will not have to close our eyes and imagine a world where heat waves are constant, infectious diseases and severe flooding is increased, and the air is so filled with carbon dioxide that it is uncomfortable to breathe. All we have to do is look around us. It looks long, in theory, but it's technically written only 2 sentences. And it ends very impactfully. You can look at this and go, man, this is not good. And that's how it works. It's 2 sentences. It should be 3, BT dubs. There's a little grammatical error. I'm not going to nitpick that right now, though. But it's only 2 sentences long. But it's ending on a strong point. We have to do these things, or we're in trouble. And you sit there, and if you read that at the end, you're like, man, yeah, I agree. I totally agree with this person. Okay? Let's talk about what you should avoid in introductions and conclusions, though. I understand that they are very hard for some people to write. I want you to work on making them as strong and effective as you can, but there are certain things that you're going to have to avoid so you don't wind up making your introductions and conclusions dull or making them just repetitive. So, with introductions, don't make an announcement in your writing. Ms. Cravens, what does that mean? Don't say, I am writing to explain, or this essay will discuss. You're not on an airline. You're not giving me instructions on how to do things. You're giving me your point, and I already know that. I know this essay will discuss XYZ because you're going to say, XYZ. I know you are writing, or I know you think, I know you believe. You don't have to say that in your writing. That's just making an announcement. You want to avoid those things. You want to be firm in your writing. And it's already implied that these things are going to be done. You want to stand strong. And when you say things like, I think, I believe, it kind of sounds a little wishy-washy. And you don't want to sound that way in your writing, especially if you're writing arguments. You want your reader to be like, yeah. Don't discourage your readers from continuing reading your essay. Things like, this may seem complicated, but we don't like hearing this in our own lives. And you can sit there and say, oh, Miss Cravens, I don't mind that. But if I started off this class and I said, most of you are going to fail this class because it's so hard, but some of you will be okay. Most of you would have probably went to your advisor and said, please drop me now. And that's because it's discouraging you. That's the same thing that you don't want to do in your writing. Because then your readers are going to say, why do I want to read this then? Why do I want to listen to you? Think about that kind of thing when you're writing. And don't prolong your introduction unnecessarily. Your introduction is meant to draw your reader in. The longer it goes on, the more they lose their interest, the more they may forget what they're doing. If your introduction, when you type it out, goes over a page typed with all the proper formatting, it's too long. You need to cut it down. I would rather you have a good solid introduction than you be prattling on to try to make a point and do so to the detriment of your own writing in the end. In the conclusion, don't introduce major points or supporting evidence. All of your points that you will tell me should be in body paragraphs, okay? They should be nowhere else but in those body paragraphs. That is key. The conclusion is where we end things. It's where we wrap it up. We don't need to go over things in the conclusion, okay? Don't make an announcement or directly restate your thesis and introduction. I've already said don't make an announcement. People still do that. In conclusion, I know it's an easy way to end an essay, but do try to avoid saying in conclusion in your writing, because it is a little bit of a cop-out. There are ways to transition into writing conclusions that don't say in conclusion. And do not retell me your thesis statement and your introduction. I already know those. I read them at the beginning. I don't need them at the end. And last, don't apologize or weaken your stance on your topic. You are going to make your stance and be firm with it. I always tell my students, you pick your hill that you're going to die on with your topic. Don't say, I'm just so sorry that you don't agree with me, but I don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that as a reader. So you will sit there and be very firm in your point, and you will be firm and you will stay firm, even in the end. How about we take a very quick little break? Guys, stand up, do a little bit of stretching, a little bit of wiggling, maybe get a drink of water, use the restroom, and then when we come back, we will end on that last key component, the thesis statement, and we will wrap up this discussion. All right, hopefully you guys are doing good. Hopefully you got you that drink of water. Now, let's talk about thesis statements. All right, so what is a thesis statement? What does the thesis statement do? Where is the thesis statement located? I kind of answered that last one already, but let's talk about these things. A thesis statement, simply put, is the main point of an essay. That is what your essay is about. Your thesis statement tells me this is what I'm going to talk about. It's also known as your main point or your main claim. So it's going to do different things. It's going to introduce your topic, state what your essay is about, and guide your readers by announcing the main point or claim of your paper. Okay, many of you were taught how to write a thesis statement by saying, I'm going to argue blank because blank, blank, blank. You were taught, get your point, your 3 points, and you'll put them in the sentence somehow. And I said, I'm going to argue because it's the easiest way to show that. Again, formulaic writing. And that's fine, but you want to start moving away from that and writing more nuanced thesis statements in college now. A thesis statement is a statement, a sentence. Sometimes you can choose to use a question, but generally it's going to be one sentence. Where is that thesis statement? Your thesis is always, 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 always the last sentence of the introduction. But Ms. Cravens, my high school teacher taught me 10 years ago that it goes at the beginning of the introduction. They were wrong. Hate to break it to you. They were wrong. Your introduction starts off with a broader discussion of your topic. Your thesis statement is the end discussion and the more pointed discussion. Your thesis leads into the topics that you're going to talk about. So it has to go at the end. Right? At the end. Or else. So let's talk about the 4 types of thesis statements that exist. Informative, argumentative, question open-ended, and implied are the 4 that do exist. An informative thesis statement, what is its purpose? It's merely to inform. Give me information. I'm not persuading you with anything. I'm not trying to argue a point. I'm just here to say, here you go. Here's this information. In biology classes sometimes, or science classes, you may be asked to write essays that are more information-based. Go find out this information and tell me about it. That's where you have an informative thesis. The first essay that you write in this class is going to use an informative thesis. I'm going to just tell you this information. I'm not trying to convince you of something. Most of you are familiar with and have always done the argumentative thesis. The purpose of the argumentative is to persuade your readers to either agree or disagree with you. Your argumentative thesis is going to have 2 features. It's going to have an assertion and a backing to it. So keep that in mind. The third one is the question or open-ended thesis. The purpose of that is to hold off stating your main point until the end. None of you should ever use a question or open-ended thesis because it is very hard to do and it is a difficult thesis to navigate and do so properly. So keep that in mind. The last one is the implied thesis, okay? The implied is a thesis statement that is often used in narrative writing, storytelling, where I'm not directly telling you what I'm talking about, but you can figure it out through the context of what is being talked about, okay? The last 2, they're there just to kind of give you an idea. The first 2 is what we're going to use, informative and argumentative, okay? Don't be worried about, oh, what else am I going to do? I ain't worried about that one, y'all. So let's talk about what makes a thesis statement effective. So an effective thesis statement makes an assertion, a claim. The day is hot and bright because global warming exists. That is my assertion. It's not hot and bright at all. At the time I'm filming this, BG Dubs, it's very cold. An effective thesis is going to make that assertion, though. You're going to make a claim. You're going to make your point known through it. An effective thesis is also going to be specific. Broader theses could work, but the more broad you are, the harder it is to narrow it down, and that means the broader your thesis is, the longer your essay is going to be. You always want your thesis to be narrowed down and to the point so you can get that point across to your readers. Your thesis is also going to focus on one central point, okay? You're not going to talk about 50 million things in it. Just narrow it down. Figure out your topics, your body topics of each body paragraph, and then figure out how to put that in one point. Where are you going with this? An effective thesis is going to offer an original perspective on your topic as well. We talked about this earlier, about the topic and the angle. It needs to give me something new. I need to know where you're going with it. You're also going to avoid making an announcement. I will argue. I know. That's why you're writing the thesis statement to begin with. You're going to argue with it, so don't tell me that. The effective thesis is also going to be used to preview the organization of the essay. So I'm going to look at that, and if you label out all your topic points, all your body points in that paragraph, in that thesis, I should be able to go point 1 is paragraph 1, point 2 is paragraph 2, point 3 is paragraph 3, if that's how it works. Okay? Keep that kind of thing in mind, guys. So let's look at what makes a good thesis statement. I'm going to give you some examples, and we're going to talk these through together. Choosing a good college is important. Take a second. Is that a good thesis? Yes? No? Ask yourself this when you look at this thesis. Why is choosing a good college important? Who are you addressing with this thesis? How does one choose a good college? What makes a college good? How do different people value colleges differently? For many of you, if you sat there and you looked at this and you were like, well, yeah, choosing a good college is important. One of the key things when you look at this thesis statement is how are you defining good? Because everybody has a different idea of what good is. For some people, a good college is a well-ranked college. Those Ivy League schools that everybody knows about and people want to get into so bad. That's a good college. In-state colleges, ASU, U of A, some people don't see those as good colleges because they don't rank up there with the others. For others, a good college is a college where they are able to go when they need to or when they can, and it's affordable. That's good to them. It's not good to other people. This is very broad. The questions that you can ask on this, it's such a huge umbrella, and you're just left going, what are my variables here? So let's look at a different thesis with this. Researching and visiting universities before making a final decision is very beneficial because you will be able to experience the campus, meet the professors, and truly understand the traditions of the university. So here, we narrow it down. It's going to be beneficial. It's not good, it's beneficial because beneficial is something that we understand that will benefit us. We don't have to define what benefits us. You can figure it out on your own. And it gives you the point that's going to say, experience the campus, meet the professors, understand the traditions. These are the 3 things that this person is saying is important to know and understand about going to college. And that narrows it down. And then you can say, okay, I know what I'm going to argue here. I've got my 3 body paragraphs figured out. And I can talk about why it's beneficial to experience the campus, why it's beneficial to meet the professors, why it's beneficial to understand the traditions of the university. I can argue that. Let's look at another thesis. The North and South fought the Civil War for many reasons, some of which were the same and some different. Some of you probably sat there while I read that and went, yeah, yep. And your point? And that's kind of the thing about this thesis. It's super vague. Like there is no claim to this. They're making no claim, no assertion whatsoever. It's just, here you go. Here's some information for you. Yes. Can you give me more? A little bit, a tiny bit more. It reads like it's restating a question for a writing prompt instead of actually putting in critical thinking with evidence. You're going to sit there and go, what are the reasons? What are they? Where are you going with this? So let's look at a thesis that kind of works on this one. While both Northerners and Southerners believe they fought against tyranny and oppression, Northerners focused on the oppression of slaves while Southerners defended their own right to self-government. Okay, we've narrowed it down. This is where we're going to show the differences and argue these differences between the two. And you know, as the reader, when you read this essay, we're going to show that this is kind of a compare and contrast. The same thing they had was fighting against tyranny and oppression, We're going to show the differences between the two here. And you're good to go with that. You're not left scratching your head going, what? Remember, a good essay has to have the following things. You have to have an introduction. You have to have a thesis statement. You have to have body paragraphs. And you have to have a conclusion. Your introduction is that upside down triangle that leads from a broad discussion to the narrow thesis. Engage your readers. Make them want to read your essay. Your thesis statement is going to be the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. It's going to make your claim known. You are going to avoid blanket statements in your thesis statement like the right to keep and bear arms is an American value. A lot of people may agree with that claim, but many also disagree with it. You are going to need to incorporate precise examples into your thesis statement. So you can say something like the right to keep and bear arms is a constitutional right. That changes it. Your body paragraphs are going to delve into the points of your essay. Okay? We didn't really talk about body paragraphs today, but they generally are easier to write than the other three. Every time you come up with a new point or a new topic, so talking about red, and then I talk about blue, blue is a new paragraph. Okay? Keep that in mind. And you need to, in your body paragraphs, thoroughly make your point. Never assume your reader understands what you're talking about. And the conclusion itself is going to wrap up the essay succinctly without reiterating the introduction or the thesis statement. You have to have these things. You must have an introduction. You must have that thesis statement. You definitely have to have that thesis statement. You really need a body paragraph or body paragraphs depending on the essay you're writing. And then you need that conclusion. You have those, you're good to go with your essays. Now, the work that you're going to have to do. You have a lecture discussion forum that goes over this lecture that you need to do. Remember, the first post that you make for your discussion forum is due on Tuesday by 11:59 p.m. Okay? Same thing for the self-reflections on writing. You have that to do as well. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact your Comp 1 cohort first. They should always be your first point of contact. Include me in that. If the questions are something that you know that your cohort can't answer, email me. Okay? But use your cohort to your advantage, guys. Hopefully you have learned something. Maybe you've unlearned something with this. That is kind of my goal here. Hope you guys have a great day, afternoon, or evening, whichever it is, and I will see you guys later. Bye.